The Aurivo Farmeye soil carbon programme started in 2023 with 10 farmers in our region being extensively sampled to get a handle on soil carbon levels. I'm on the farm of David Gannon in Cropwell in County Galway here today, who's one of the programme farmers, and we're joined by Farmeye to discuss the programme further. I started by asking Owen Finneran what is carbon farming and why it is an area of growing interest for farmers.
Carbon is ultimately life and biology, and soil carbon is the remnants of the organic matter that built up in the soil and builds up over generations. And we're interested in it because if you have a healthy, productive soil, you'll have high levels of organic matter, which is mainly comprised of carbon. So there was 10 farms sampled in the Aurivo programme, and the sampling took place using hydraulic cores which sampled the soil to a depth of 60 centimetres. So we took two different levels and analysed them separately. The first was 0 to 30 centimetres depth and the second was 30 to 60 centimetres. And a profile of the farm was generated on a map showing the different carbon stocks across the whole farm. The reason for the two different levels is because the deeper carbon is carbon that's been built up over a number of generations. That's typically below the plough layer, for example, in a tillage farm, or even if you're reseeding. But the 0 to 30 centimetres, that's more seen as the labile or the active carbon layer. So that's the layer that the farmers' management this year and the next 5 to 10 years is going to have an impact on. The reason why measuring carbon is going to be important into the future is that ultimately farmers are being asked about their natural capital and what they are doing for soil health, water quality, biodiversity, but also farm carbon. There are standards being implemented internationally. The European Union has a new protocol which is just coming out around the measurement of soil carbon, and the programme here with Aurivo is being managed to the ISO standard, which is the equivalent recognised by the UN FAO and likely to be implemented in the new European carbon farming protocols. It's very important that you use these verified, recognised standards. And the second thing that's most important about carbon measurement is that you get an accurate baseline, because ultimately if there are to be payments to farmers into the future, they will be based on the sequestration rates. And in order for you to verifiably say what you've sequestered, you need a really accurate GPS tracked and rigorously measured baseline for the farm. Today we're on David Gannon's farm here, and it's a mixed soil type, but there's quite a bit of deep clay soil in it. And we were just looking at the carbon stocks there. So the carbon stocks down to that 60 centimetres were over 150 tonnes per hectare, which would be higher than the programme average and reflective of the background soil type here. So in terms of management practices, essentially any sort of productive good soil management will help to build organic matter and carbon. And that includes things like just the basics of making sure your soil fertility or soil health is right. So your P's, K's, pH's, if they're right, the capacity of the soil to store carbon is increased. Other things then include, minimising chances of compaction or minimise cultivations. So where you are reseeding using minimal cultivation techniques, and where you are sowing a new sward, sowing different species and deeper rooting species as well as part of that.
So my name is David Gannon. I'm farming here in Kilkenny in County Galway. It's just based between Lochray and Athenry. So our farm was sampled in March of 2023, and from that then Farmeye generated two different maps for us, so cores from 0 to 300 millimetres and 300 to 600 millimetres, and then interpreting them. So they're printed in different colours, so the darker shades show the higher carbon stocks, and we're kind of focusing on trying to understand the 0 to 300 millimetre carbon stocks, because that's what our management practices should influence. And we're trying to, so it's interesting on the farm, the different soil types and their capacity to carry carbon or capture carbon, and it lines up with our expectations, where our heavier, deeper clays actually have higher carbon stocks. So we're implementing as best practice as we can in terms of grassland management. So we're introducing small bit of multi-species swards, mostly clover swards we're introducing across the farm, and we want to just get an understanding of, I suppose, what influence our practices in terms of maintaining soil fertility, building soil fertility, and sward diversity, keeping a cover over the winter, and what influence that has on the carbon stocks.
Farms were baselined with measurement of soil carbon and bulk density in 2023, and that resampling will occur in 3 years' time again. So the exact GPS locations within the field will be revisited, and soil will be analysed again to the 2 depths, and the bulk density and carbon content once again analysed. For the intervening years between the baselining and the second measurement period in the field, the carbon sequestration data is modelled based on system and management data from the farm, and satellite data which is also fed into the model.